Hello, and welcome to the Department of Engagement, Leadership, and Services registration module. In this module, we will go over requirements that need to be done before you register a new organization, and we will go through the registration form together. There are a few things you will need to make sure are complete before you begin your registration forms on the Involvement Network. The first is to complete our 4 training modules and quizzes. These quizzes cover funding and fund management, reservations and events, solicitation and fundraising, and trademarks and promotion. If your organization has any trademarks in their name or logo, you will need to begin your approval process through the Trademarks Office. Your organization will not receive trademark approval until you have all other requirements complete, but in the meantime, you will need to fill out the trademarks approval form and email trademarks@uga.edu. Once you've completed all other requirements, Trademarks will grant you approval. Lastly, before you begin your registration submission, you will need to make sure you have a constitution that has all required parts. You can use our sample constitution as a baseline and then input information specifically to your organization. The constitution must include the non-discrimination and anti-harassment statement, the requirement of an officer to pay the student activity fee, that non-students are unable to vote on UGA student organizational business, and the procedures for officer election, removal, amendments, and the definition of quorum. Once these steps are approved, you are ready to go to the Involvement Network. Here, you will go to the Organization button, Register an Organization, and register a new organization. On the first page, you will just see instructions which outlines what we just went through about the trademark approval process and training modules, and that you have certain things done already, such as having 6 student members on your roster, with 1 being the primary contact. Once you press next, we're going to start asking things about policy and procedure. So first, like I mentioned, we're just going to make sure that you have 6 currently enrolled UGA students, with 2 of those being officers, and that your organization name does not start with the or UGA. We also are going to ask about your membership and the fact of our non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy. We're going to ask things about a waiver and that you understand our registration process and the factors for registration denial. And then lastly, we're going to make sure that you understand that if you do not complete these, you will not be entitled to the eligibility of these organizations. Now we're going to ask about different things with your policies. So if you've read the student handbook, the code of conduct, non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy, the hazing policy, the policy for programs and activities serving minors, the student organization manual, and that no UGA employee can have access to a student organization's private banking accounts, and that you understand our registration procedures and that you've completed our training modules. Here, we're just going to ask some things about your involvement, is like if you've served as a chief officer before, when your organization transitions leadership, about how many events you do, if there's any trainings that y'all do, what is one goal that you have, and then things like, do you feel the collective strengths in your leadership, and just things to know about your involvement while at UGA. In step 4, we're going to start asking about your organization. So first, you'll need to fill out your official organization name, as it'll be listed on the Involvement Network. If you have any acronyms or nicknames, you're welcome to put that there, but that's not required. We also ask for an organization description summary, and then also an organization description. Here is a website URL, and this is how people are going to be able to find you. You can also put some social media, but that is not necessary. Below, we ask about your organization contact information. So here, these are things that are going to be public on the Involvement Network. So you're welcome to put any email address. We ask that it's preferable not to put your private one, but it's not necessary. We also ask for a street address, and it has to be public. So if you do not have a public street address, you're welcome to put the ELS's street address, which is just 102 Tate Student Center. Below, we'll start asking information about the primary contact. So this information will be private just for the ELS's use. So please make sure to put your actual information and your UGA phone number, your personal phone number, and then your UGA email. Here we'll start asking things about your organization, which will be public. So when do you usually host meetings? When do they usually happen? And then how many members do you have? How many leadership positions do you have? If you want to list any signature events. And then you also put financial obligation. If you do have any finances obligated, please put the amount so that you're transparent to those looking at your engagement page. You'll then also upload a profile picture. Please make sure that it is appropriate, but this will just be your logo on the involvement network. If you have any trademarks, such as UGA, University of Georgia, in your name or your logo, you'll start that approval process, like I mentioned before, but you will not upload that just yet until you are officially ready for approval through our office. But you can start that process through filling out this form and emailing it to trademarks@uga.edu. Here's just some organization categories. So when students come on the Involvement Network and they want to look up academic colleges and communities, they will find your organization if you put that there. This is not necessary, but it helps people kind of find your organization while sifting through the Involvement Network. We're also going to ask you to fill out a roster. And so you'll just need to make sure that you have 6 students, and to make sure to put their actual name and their UGA email address. So I'm just going to add 6 students and then go from there. So once you have 6 students, you're going to want to make sure that someone is a secondary contact. This is usually maybe a vice president or anything of that sort, but please make sure that it is a student member. So next, we're going to ask about some advisor information. If you have an advisor, please make sure they're on the roster if they're a UGA member. And then we're also going to ask you to fill out some information about them. So this is just going to be if you are sponsored, please put yes, and then what the sponsoring unit is. And then we're going to ask different information like what your advisor's name is, and their UGA email, what their on-campus work phone is, and then their on-campus work address. If you have 2 advisors, please put their secondary advisor information. And if you have more than 2, you're welcome to just put 2 and go from there. And then lastly, we're going to work on the Constitution. So everyone's Constitution is required to have certain things, such as the anti-harassment and non-discrimination statement, and the fact that all officers must pay student activity fees. We also need the procedures for elections, officer removal, and amendments. This can be very similar to our sample Constitution. Just make sure you have these and then you make it specific to your organization. You also must make sure that you have quorum and that only students can vote on different UGA organizational business and count towards quorum. So once you have that Constitution, you will just upload this file and then press next. And once you see all of these things and that you've completed everything, you'll just press submit. And then you will give the Office of Engagement Leadership and Service about 7 to 10 business days to review your organization registration. And then once we figure that out, if it's approved or not, you'll receive a notification from the Involvement Network on if there's changes required or if it's approved. But yes, that concludes our registration module. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to email ugaels@uga.edu. Other than that, thank you and have a good day.